Hey, good evening, everyone. So, on this Tuesday's Getting to Know Ukraine, we're going to go completely off script. We're not going to use any learning materials or any information. I'm just going to speak to you about my experiences in Ukraine, what I saw needs improvement, that I would like humanitarian exchange to help with. And then in a part 2 of the video, we will then pray for the country and their needs. So I want to make sure that this channel caters to multiple different types of people, both Christian and non-Christian. Non-Christian people aren't really going to want to hear prayers. Christian people are. So I want to make sure that this channel caters to both. So the first thing that I noticed going into Ukraine, I flew out from Germany when I was there, and I flew into the capital city, Kyiv, and we were in a brand new airport, and it was one of the bigger airports that I've been to, and it was a lot nicer than any airport I've been to in the United States, except for maybe the smaller airport in Dallas. That was really nice. But in the US, as a lot of our infrastructure is run down, which we have that in common with Ukraine, because once you get out from the airport, get on the train, and then the train takes you into downtown Kyiv, where the main railway station is. And as soon as you get off the main railway station, the main building is humongous. Like, there are multiple tracks connecting to the station. There are multiple ways in and out. And the way that I went out was one of the most busiest McDonald's supposedly in Europe. It was just across the street. And it was kind of crazy to see that America has that far of reach. They're 8 hours ahead of us in time, and it takes 16 plus hours on a plane to get there. But as I was walking around, you notice the difference between the old Soviet-style architecture and then the newer buildings that have been going up because of certain investors or hotel groups. Kyiv being the capital city, there's the most people there. And when tourism does happen in Ukraine, people generally go to Kyiv because that's all that they hear about. It's all that they really know about. Some people aren't even aware that Ukraine is still defending the eastern part of the country from Russian aggression. But not a whole lot of people go that far east. Most people just stay in Kyiv, or they go further west to like Lviv, that's close to the border of Poland, or they go to Odessa because the Black Sea is there, and I hear it's gorgeous. Like, even in Kyiv, you notice that the infrastructure isn't the greatest. Like, the roads aren't upkept very well because there's just not money in the country's budget to do basic maintenance. But you do notice that buildings are generally better upkeep. People tend to have a little more money because it's the capital city, and everyone moves from the surrounding villages, even some of the bigger to medium-sized cities, to work in Kyiv. Because I was told when I was there, as we were walking around, that there's 7 million people there. And, that might just be 7 million Ukrainians, or a combination of 7 million Ukrainians, other job seekers, and visitors. But it never surprised me that wherever we went, there was always something different going on. A lot of their restaurants had outside seating, which is kind of foreign where I live in Minnesota, because it's disgusting and cold for almost 6 months out of the year. So it's really hard to have outdoor shops that run all the time. And a couple friends that live in Kyiv told me that winter there isn't that harsh, and their winters last between 3 and 4 months. And when I told them that we get down to negative 20 and negative 30 degrees here in Minnesota almost every year, they were just like, why do you live there? Like, they just couldn't understand why people would subjugate themselves to such punishment. And, my joking response was, well, I'm half German and some Norwegian, and, the Norwegian part of my family probably came to Minnesota. I'm just like, oh, this reminds us of home. Cold. So, they thought it was funny, they laughed. I'm not the most comedic guy. Like, I don't really give off a whole lot of emotion. That's probably one of the reasons why these videos aren't doing so well. But I'm not going to put on a mask and try to entertain people when we're talking about serious subjects and people that really need help. I'm very passionate about helping these people and wanting to spend the bulk of my life in Eastern Europe, if not all of my life, trying to make their lives better. So another difference that you'll notice as soon as you get there is that, there's not a whole lot of personal space, and you just deal with it. And it's not a problem. People tend to be a lot more friendly on the street. Like, in the U.S. here, especially Minnesota in the mornings, people will greet each other, but as soon as you get into the afternoon or to the evening, if they don't know you, they're not going to talk to you. They're not going to look at you unless they're, someone working for slave wages at Walmart or some other big box store. Then, the customer is always right mentality, and you do some sort of interaction, social currency interaction to get that task done, and you move on. But in Ukraine, from what I've seen and what I've been told, people are generally interested in one another enough to have a small conversation. And like I have stated before that if you ask somebody how they're doing, be prepared to stand there for 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a half an hour, having a discussion with them about that one question. It doesn't go over the same way where in the US, if you say, hey, how are you doing? The person goes, oh, okay, conversation's over. No, that's not how it goes, in Ukraine or Eastern Europe in general. Like when I was in Poland, same thing. If you ask somebody how they're doing and you don't stick around for the answer or engage in the conversation, they're going to take a lot of offense to that, and depending on the person, they're not going to want to talk to you again. And they'll just, unfortunately, you will enforce some of the stereotypes about the US that we only care about ourselves, we're constantly busy, work is more important than family and vacation. And whenever I do missions work or, travel on my own, I try not to bring any stereotypes with me. I try my best to break those stereotypes and, do what I can to foster good relation between my nation and whoever's nation I happen to be in. And, that's everyone's goal and responsibility when they're traveling. Even if you're traveling to a different state, you still need to uphold, the good parts of where you're from. Even if you're from someplace where upside down is right side up. You just have to push for what's good. The other thing about Ukraine that really is different than here is that I've said before, the homeless problem is a lot more open. It's everywhere. You'll see it wherever you go. It's not neatly tucked into one corner of the city underneath the rug because some mayor is just like, oh, we don't want to see this, just push them over here. It doesn't happen when a lot of the people are in poverty. Like I said before, up to 40% of people are in poverty. If 40% of America was in poverty, like we might be if Corona keeps happening and people don't actually use common sense, it would be crazy. Like, people would be thrown out of office, there would be more riots, there would be people chanting jobs, 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 not free stuff or whatever is chanting now. People's focus would shift to, oh my god, almost half of the country is unemployed and no money. We need to do something about it. Thankfully, we haven't gotten there yet, But unfortunately, 40% of the country being poor or underemployed is almost half of their nation. So that's one of the reasons why I personally, always give a good review when I come back, because I'm not going to lie, being there for 20 days really changed my outlook on some things that are important in life. And when you have less things, you understand what's more important, being your family, your friends, your hobbies, and your job last. You work what you need to do to survive. You don't do anything else unless there's a benefit. Like, oh, you want me to work a 60-hour week and get a promotion and a pay raise? Okay, I'll do that. But here in the US, employers are constantly taking advantage of, unless you work for yourself. But in my case, when you work for yourself, you just become a pauper, because people really aren't interested in what you do. Well, you don't have enough money to spend on PR campaigns, but you always have to try to push through. If you can't do it, you've at least tried. You've at least say, well, I did this with my life. I accomplished something. You always have to keep moving. And that's one thing that I learned from the people of Ukraine, is that they are always persistent and persevering towards something better in their lives, regardless if they don't have anything or not. Like, I noticed some people that were living in conditions in the US where we would tear the building down because it wasn't safe. And they're working, they have dreams, they have goals, they're starting families. They're just like, yeah, this is what we have now, this is all we can afford, and sometimes our heat works, sometimes it doesn't. But they don't let that get them down. They keep pushing for a better tomorrow. And they also try their best to keep their government accountable. Like, they've gone out in force, peacefully, to end corruption and get better people in office. They make their voices heard. We don't do that in the US. We are complacent. We have so many bad people in government, and we don't go out in force and make change happen by our votes or by our picket signs. We don't do that. In Ukraine, they do, because they had almost 70 years of subjugation under the Soviet Union. They want nothing to do with corruption or tyranny or socialism, anything of that flavor. They don't stand for it. They all take the time off of work, they all gather, and they all make their voices heard out loud and in the ballot box. I believe that's one thing we definitely need to learn from them, is to enforce the anti-corruption. And the best way to enforce anti-corruption is term limits on everything. I don't know if they do term limits on everything, but I know that they try their best to hold people accountable, especially the people that are in charge. So that's something that we should learn. On the positive side, we can be a very generous nation. We give a lot of food and medical aid to Africa and to other countries. And just recently I read that the U.S. Air Force is loaning out 2 bomber crews to help train with the Ukrainians for the defense of their land. International cooperation with humanitarian aid, defense, medical, colleges having exchange programs, those are all good things, and those are how we help bring other nations out of poverty, some of the ways. But the most important ways, at least that I've seen, is personally investing in someone's life. And if that means buying them a week's worth of groceries, or if you have the money, which most Americans, even those of us that work minimum wage jobs, we are more wealthy than most people in Ukraine. So even with a minimum wage salary here, you can live pretty well there, and you can give enough to help. So even giving, like I've said before, food, clothing, school supplies, if you can get them medicines, and invest in people, and not just people, also invest in an orphanage, invest in schools that are teaching kids English so that they have the ability to get some sort of job that's for this 21st century, working in technology or some sort of business that they're working with other English-speaking nations. So they have a chance to remove themselves from the situation they're in, or at least move to a better position. That's something else I would like humanitarian exchange to do eventually is, I have a certification to teach conversational English or teach English to people that know a little bit. The level is called B1. It's a Cambridge level. So not knowing Russian or Ukrainian, I need to speak with and teach students at B1 or higher. But some people I know in the U.S., I'm not going to name names, they're from Eastern Europe, they live in the U.S., they also speak Russian. And at some point, it would be awesome if I could get a team of people, 2 or 3 or however many want to come with me, to go to Ukraine, help teach English for free, and spend time with the children in the orphanage, because there are so many children and not enough adults, giving them positive attention. And just having positive attention from one adult investing in their life makes it a huger chance of them succeeding as soon as they're moved out of the system at 16. So I would like to do that at some point. I would like to get in contact with orphanages in country. I would like to partner with them and help them any way physically or financially possible without, draining all the coffers of the organization, so we have to shut down. There is a limit to what you can do without funding. So I've been trying my hardest to help fund this so I can get back over there. And the dollar amount that I need to move the organization over there and get things rolling and get in contact with orphanages and schools and people that need help is $4,300. I've personally raised or sold my own things $2,300. I sold my car for $1,300. The only thing I had of big value was that. And even today, $1,300 in the U.S. is a paycheck for a lot of people. I've never made that in a paycheck. I've always been working poor. Some number at a factory where no one cares about you. That's what I've always done. And it's not the life for me. Now, I don't knock the people that do that. The job they do is needed. Good for them. I appreciate that they're doing those jobs that I was not created to do. I believe that I was created to help people that are in need. And there is a lot of need in Ukraine. And I know people are going to say to me, John, there's a lot of need in the U.S. Why don't you help in the U.S.? There are a ton of organizations and people that help in the U.S. And there's also a lot of bureaucracy that keeps certain things from actually changing. So I've always felt and known that my efforts, or the efforts of the organization that I start, are currently better off elsewhere. Maybe at some point in time they will be a team or a satellite base that's in the U.S. somewhere, in a poorer state like Arkansas. I don't know what God has in the future for me. Right now, I'm trying my hardest to get back to Ukraine. And I wanted to do it within this year. But it's already been a year since I've been there. It's hard being stuck here and not having the financial means to get back over there and to get back into the work the Lord has put on my heart. So, I've shared a little bit. I feel like I rambled on a little bit too much, so we're going to cut this right here. And it is what it is. If you get something from it, great. If you didn't, maybe it's not for you and there's something else that you can do to help out people. I appreciate you all for watching. I appreciate people getting the chance and listening to the videos. Like I said, I'm not the most animated type of person. I'm not your favorite college professor or your, superstar preacher like Joel Osteen or whoever. I'm not that guy. I was never called to be the leader of a church, to be the charismatic person that has all eyes on them and then points them to Christ. That's not me. I'm the guy that is there to serve and support and, in some sense, yes, lead, but not in the sense of being dramatic and charismatic. That's not me. I'm a reality guy. I give you the facts. I do the best to not sugarcoat things. And some people, they just don't like that. They like the fluffy bunny happy answer. And that's just not me. I can't do it. So, have a great day, guys. I hope to see you next Tuesday. And in part 2, we will be praying for Ukraine and their needs. I would like to pray for people by name that I've met, but I'm not going to do that for their personal privacy. I will not use their names. So, see you guys later. Bye.